All right, hello, wine-drinking people. We are back, and more reviews from the Great Wine Seminar. I know it seems like it's taken us forever to get through this, but man, there was like 5 seminars, and doing one of them a day. Like I said, we got a lot of drinking we got to keep up with here in the store as well. So this is, for such a great weekend of wine tastings, I can't say there's really any one tasting that, is any better, that much greater than any of the other ones. But, if I was anticipating one seminar from this year's tasting, it was the George Compte de Vogue. And, this is just one of these stellar lineup of wines. You don't see various vintages of Musigny and Bonnes Mares open at the same time on the table, especially to the tune of like 5 or 6 different vintages of each. I was just salivating, to say the least. And, this one seminar happened right after lunch, so maybe not the best time to have a wine seminar, because everyone's been drinking in the morning and probably drinking at lunch. And you could see a few of the people there were in a little nappy mode there, But Jean-Luc Pepin was good to keep everybody alert. And then Clive Coach, you have 2 guys here that probably know more about the Grand Crus of Bonnes Mares and Musigny than any other people on the planet. So, who better to sit down and, conduct a seminar on these wines. Really was a treat, not only to taste the wines, but to get the commentary from these two folks. And Clive Coates wasn't too lit up just yet. I mean, he doesn't spit. So for a taster that, he may have spit, I'm just kidding. But, he does get a little bit more animated as the day goes on. Maybe a little bit harder to understand, but always entertaining. All right, first up we had the 2008 vintage. And, 2008, 2007, and 2006. Difficult vintages for Burgundy, for reds, to say the least. For some reason, I think the whites come in earlier. Maybe that has a lot to do with it. Well, it definitely has a lot to do with it. It's easier to make, the white wines consistently good every year. 2006, 7, and 8, pretty good, really good. 2008 and 2007 for the whites, and even 2006 for wines you want to drink young. But for some reason, the reds, there's a bit of rot in those 3 vintages. That doesn't help. But, when you have a property like de Vogue, these people go through and eliminate all that rot just by, the triage and the different various, sorting tables that they have and things like that. So it really doesn't affect a winery like this too much, other than the fact that in a great vintage like 2005, when you don't have it, it just makes things a heck of a lot easier. All right, well, the 2008, this wine still had some firm tannins. We had opened it 2 hours before the tasting and probably needed to be open 2 days before the tasting. But really generous vintage, and, it was really nice raspberry coulis-like fruit, a little green tea, mint, lovely intensity on the nose, bright and well-focused on the palate. Again, firm tannins, and, even after being open for 2 hours, this wine, like I said, needed 2 days. Just beautiful, though. 2008 Bonnes Mares and Musigny, always a bit bigger. It had this raspberry coulis kind of fruit on the nose. Very pretty floral nuance and exotic spices. I just love the nose on Musigny. I don't even want to taste this wine. I just want to stick my nose in the glass and smell it. Big and intense on the palate, dry tannins, those exotic spices resonating through the finish. Strikingly fresh and fairly tannic right now. And, like I said, these wines need to be open a day in advance, but most excellent stuff, the Musigny. And the Bonnes Mares, maybe just a shade lighter in, complexity and intensity, but also, man, excellent stuff. All right, the 2007 vintage, maybe not as impressive overall as 2008 to me now, but I mean, pretty similar. 2007 maybe just a little bit brighter, a little bit more high-toned, and, really nice wines. Both of these de Vogue wines from 07 as well. Like I said, maybe not quite as tannic. Well, that has also a lot to do with them being another year in the bottle here. The 2006 vintage, the summer was very hot. This led to a more drinkable style vintage with more upfront fruit intensity and the acidity a bit lower. The Musigny was also a little bit more forward in this vintage. These wines can be very tough to drink when young. Clive kept mentioning, these wines should not be touched for another 10 years, and I think that's because, the tannin level in these wines still really pretty rough. And I think if you have the right food with them, brilliant wines to drink young even. One of the things I love about Burgundy is its early appeal. And the 2006 is probably the best wines to drink of the first 3. What a treat to have the 2002s, an outstanding vintage for both white and red wine in Burgundy. And as I pointed out before, that doesn't always happen. It usually is not the case. 2002 Bonnes Mares, lovely floral and herbal bouquet there with raspberry coulis and oriental spice and some fresh earth nuance starting to creep into the picture there. Really nice, still quite youthful on the palate, But you noticed some tannin there, showing these wines still had another 3 to 5 more years at least in the cellar. Most excellent stuff though. The 2002 Bonnes Mares, and then the Musigny. Wow. Ooh, big exotic bouquet, similar to the Bonnes Mares, and that's the character of a warm vintage. You get more of the vintage influence than the actual terroir, but still, wow, explosive on the tongue, really complex and thick, velvety tannins. Whew, man, this 2002 Musigny, killer juice. All right, 2001, not as earthy as the Bonnes Mares, the Musigny, but, still a bit of barnyard in both of these wines, and the truffle note showing through, that red cherry and raspberry fruit, little wild strawberry there as well. This wine's a little more forward, the 2001s, drinking, really nice, hard to resist right now, but still, these wines still fairly young. You could put them in your cellar another 10 years easy, the 2001s. Both of them really nice, the Musigny and the Bonnes Mares. I didn't have either one of them edging out the other one in this flight. I rated them both the same in 2001. Usually I like the Musigny better, but Bonnes Mares is pretty top level too. So 1999, 1999 is a vintage, man. Still pretty large in size. I opened these wines 2 hours before we drank them. And hey, we got a corked bottle of 99 Bonnes Mares. You see that empty one right there, folks? Plastic bag that sucker. 2 days later, still drinking beautifully. Well, the TCA was gone in it 2 days later, so, you get a bad bottle of Musigny. What a disappointment. These wines are $300 to $500 a bottle. Hey, we've got an offer following all the reviews of everything we've got in the store, and we've got Bonnes Mares Magnums of 1990 vintage. So some killer stuff on this offer. Check it out. The 1998s, maybe just a little bit more forward than the 99s, but still really good structure in these wines. Really big, both of them in size. The Musigny kind of edging out the Bonnes Mares in that flight. And then the one old dog, the 1991 Musigny, a hailstorm on the 22nd of August damaged the crop a bit in 91. And this is always the danger that Pinot Noir faces that Chardonnay doesn't have as much of. But they still get hailstorms, with when the Chardonnay's on the vines as well. But you can lose, 2/3, a third, all of your crop, and how disappointing to have to take care of the vines all year right before harvest. Boom, just devastated by hail. But hey, that's Burgundy. All right, and this wine really drinking nicely, soft and smooth at the edges. One of the things that Musigny has over time, it loses that tannin and that exotic spice and that fruit. Everything comes together, and it's just, wow, incredible on the finish. Really beautiful stuff, the 1991. Not a really highly regarded vintage, but hey, that's what happens after a vintage like 1990, which I mentioned I have some Bonnes Mares and Magnums from these guys. Still a baby. I had it a year ago. Still needs time. All right. Well, we had some white wines. They do make a little white at the Vogue, and the new releases are just called Bourgogne Blanc. This is one of the only Grand Crus where you can have both white and red. And hey, these guys own the whole show in Musigny. There's nobody else that makes white Musigny but the Vogue. And what a treat to have the 1992, which this was labeled Musigny because the age of the vines at this time were over 25 years old. They had to pull up this vineyard since. And wow, lovely flinty, minerally laced bouquet with quince, apples, roasted grains, still quite fresh. It's from the top parcel right on top of the Musigny Hill, and replanted in 1986. So wow, that was when the new regime arrived, and wow, this 92 just absolutely beautiful, lovely freshness still in the finish, and still a lot left in this wine. You'd think it could last another 10 years. That's what we had to drink at the De Vogue seminar. Up next, back to what we've been doing in the store here the last week. We've got a lot of Musigny available on this offer. Wow. Actually, there's packages on this offer, and what the packages are with the 2009 releases, there's bottles or cases listed, and that is what the package contains. You don't have to order all 3 bottles, but if you order, 1 bottle, you have to order equal amounts of the other things in the package. All right, well, next up, we've got our good friend Dan Kravitz back. I haven't seen Dan in years.